I decided that there is no way in hell that Noah got the correct study, so I did what I shouldn't have had to do and checked all of Dove's partnerships from the original article, which led me to this article here from Women in Games. Guess what? It turns out that Opinium did not do the survey.
Oh no!
Oh, that's
Oh
hilarious.
no,
Oh, that's
Noah!
hilarious.
You goofed the floof!
This is hilarious.
You floofed the goof, Noah!
How could he do that?
You got the wrong study! Oh my god, I'm so sorry, Noah. You're really
So-
floofing on that one.
Look, so embarrassing. So
Oh.
embarrassing. He's bragging about, oh, look, it took me 10 seconds to look up this study. To look up the wrong study.
So first up, Think Before You Sleep makes the argument that Dove is a lazy company because they show a statistic on the screen that he doesn't believe is true.
Real beauty takes effort, and everything about this project from Dove says, we put no effort into this. For example,
2 out of 3 female gamers in the UK say there is a lack of representation in video games. The screen says.
You were not there. You don't exist. The things are not made for you.
okay, I don't
It's not for you.
I guess not.
believe that statistic at all. Where did you get that number? Did you simply ask 3 of your British friends? Because there is no way that most British women are eternally offended snowflakes who care about that kind of stuff.
So this is the Opinium Women in Gaming survey from early 2021. It was a survey of about 1,400 United Kingdom gamers age 18 and over. And one of the key findings here was that 69% of women felt that there needs to be more female characters in video games in general. The 2/3 statistic that Dove shows here, that is from this survey. And here you might say, well, Noah, Dove didn't cite where they found that statistic on the screen, so a viewer of the ad would have no idea where to search to confirm its validity. And well, firstly, Think Before You Sleep is not just a viewer of the ad, he is a YouTube journalist, let's call him, with a big audience that's making a video that critiques this ad. All he had to do was a single Google search with some relevant terms to find this survey. It took me 10 seconds. It's really not that much work, but he didn't do it, which, you know, that's
Lazy. This is completely lazy.
sorry, I just wanted to use that clip. It's a great sound effect. I think it's fun.
Lazy. 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 Lazy.
Okay, so I want you all to keep this in your mind, okay? So Think Before You Sleep criticizes the Dove ad because they throw up this statistic with no citation whatsoever. And in his video, he talks about how, well, if they don't give you a citation, you should just hand wave it away, right? You should assume it's not real or whatever. It's their job to give you the citation.
Okay.
And Noah says that he was able to very easily find this study with a 10-second Google search.
Right. How long
Okay.
did it take you, Sitch?
Well, I'm not gonna spoil it. Okay.
Okay.
So just retain that information. Okay.
10 seconds. Got it.
Lazy.
Later in this video, Think Before You Sleep makes an argument about another statistic from the Opinium survey, arguing that the statistic must be bullshit because some people online didn't like it.
Where exactly did you get that stat? This time it says 74%, so on this occasion, they would have had to survey at least 50 people. That's more than 3, but what do they do? Survey the office? How exactly did they ask the questions in the survey? Because there's no way that much of the general population agrees with this woke narrative, considering that in places like America, half the population are conservatives who don't care about this, and tons of liberals are anti-feminist too. So there's no way you got a vast majority on this one. The proof being that you had to censor the comments on the video.
So his proof that the general population isn't with the wokeness is that the comments were turned off on one of these Dove animations. Now, let's just ignore.
Well, okay, first of all, he said he reasoned, and then you can make arguments in favor or against. He reasoned that if half the population in America is conservative, half the population presumably would not be on board with woke stuff. Therefore, he would be skeptical of an unsourced claim that 74% of females had some opinion, some woke opinion.
That's
Right.
reasonable.
That was the claim. But Noah doesn't address that, obviously.
or the fact that this channel actually has comments turned off on all of their videos, and just zoom in on the likes counter where we can see that it has 500 likes and over 16,000 dislikes. That's 99%. That's a pretty wild statistic, right? If you do a survey on a topic, it's very rare to see a figure like that, 99%. This isn't exactly a controlled experiment though, is it? There's a pretty important uncontrolled variable here, which is that hundreds of rabid anti-feminist YouTubers all made the same video talking about how the Dove ad is dumb and bad because it's woke, which might have some influence on the type of people that end up seeing the ad, given that the ad was only really talked about online by these anti-feminists. Just a thought there, you know?
How come we didn't do a video on
I
this?
know.
Sitch? Look
we really
at
missed
this.
the mark there. We really missed the mark. We're
All
doing
those
it now.
people.
We're too late. Okay. So now we're going to do our Pulp Fiction. So
Sweet.
the
I'm
claim is
John
about...
Travolta right now.
Right.
I'm in the bathroom reading.
Yes, you're in the bathroom reading. So Dove puts up the statistic. They say 74% of women feel under, represented in games or whatever. 2/3 of women, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And Think Before You Sleep says they give no citation for this. Noah says, I found this with a 10-minute Google search. Don't be lazy.
10-second.
I'm sorry, 10-second Google search, right? Now, I'm not going to play you Think Before You Sleep's response yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna play you, and this is very interesting. I'm gonna play you Noah Samsen's second response to Think Before You Sleep's response before you actually see what Think Before You Sleep says. Okay.
Okay.
And you'll see why. You'll see why.
So he's responding to Think Before You Sleep.
Why obese people
Yes.
aren't.
So Think Before You Sleep has responded
Response.
to Noah's
And this
video.
is his response to him. I got
And
it.
this is Noah's video in response to that.
Okay.
I want to show you the aftermath, and then I want to show you what the response is, just to really cement the dishonesty that Noah engages in his video, especially his second video.
First up, a primary point in this video concerns women's representation in video games. Dove, in their Real Virtual Beauty ad campaign from the last video, they presented some statistics about this topic which were the basis for the campaign. The stat in question here reads, 2 out of 3 female gamers in the UK say that there's a lack of representation in video games. For context, last video, Think Before You Sleep argued against this statistic by pretty much saying that he doesn't believe it.
Where did you get that number? Did you simply ask 3 of your British friends? Because there is no way that most British women are eternally offended snowflakes who care about that kind of stuff.
In this video, his first argument against this statistic is that the research behind it wasn't cited in the ad, and therefore we must assume that it is incorrect or a lie.
Okay, so I'm supposed to do Dove's homework for them? Dove is the one who brought up the data. They're responsible for telling the audience where their stats came from. It's not my job to Google it for them. If someone gives statistical data and doesn't say where they got it from, then the proper thing to do is to take it with a grain of salt or assume that they are lying.
Now, this is interesting because while I do agree statistics generally should be cited, that makes the process of fact-checking easier, a lack of citation doesn't inherently mean that statistics are false. That in and of itself is a bad argument against statistical claims, especially when data exists that shows these claims to be true, and we actually found some of that data. In my video, I cited a survey that corroborated these claims from Dove. In the Opinium...
Okay, so I'll say first that I agree that just because someone doesn't cite the source, that doesn't mean you should automatically dismiss it, right? But I also agree that if you are a company and you're making some claim that seems to be a claim written in a way that presumes that there was some study, you should make the source easily and readily available, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back a second. I want you to listen very, very, very closely to what Noah says. Okay.
When data exists that shows these claims to be true, and we actually found some of that data. In my video, I cited a survey that corroborated these claims from Dove.
What did he just say?
He found a survey, but not the survey. Is that what I'm supposed to?
That's one thing. You found the point one. What was the...
Okay.
He said he found a survey that...
Because normally I would say I found the survey that they used.
Right.
If I found the survey.
He said he found a survey that corroborated.
Right.
Corroborated.
Right.
That's an interesting word.
It's not the survey.
Oh,
Dove
isn't
people
that
use.
interesting?
So,
Okay.
okay. So it took him 10 seconds to find the wrong survey.
Yeah.
Great job.
Right.
Great job, champ.
Right. You do not when you say I found the survey they were referencing, you don't say I found a survey that corroborated. No. That
Look,
means you found something you think supports it, but it's not the actual thing.
Look, he's trying to walk it back here. Look, he made a little embarrassing whoopsie
Do you
that
think
only PSA Sitch is going to catch.
Well, no. Well, okay. But do you think at any point that Noah will acknowledge that in his first video, when he was giving Think Before You Sleep such crap for not Googling the 10-second survey, do you think he will acknowledge that, whoops, he actually never found the survey?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Look,
Right.
he's not the type to come out and say he was wrong.
Yes. Well, he
It
does
is kind of
actually say he's
funny, though.
wrong later in this video, but he says he's wrong in a way to cover up something else, which is kind of hilarious. So,
Oh, that's good. That's rich. Rich.
In
It
the
only
opinion-
takes you 10 seconds to Google the wrong survey.
and then not admit it in your second video.
Oh, look. That takes even less time
Yes.
because you don't have to put it in the script. Look, I
Women in
was
Gaming
wrong.
report, the one that I presented, the data lines up perfectly with Dove's claims.
So
Look,
The
he's
d-
trying to walk it back.
the data lines up perfectly with Dove's claims. Okay. So, and it's funny too, because if you look at
Did-
this, you'll notice.
Did Think Before You Sleep call him out on this? Did
Well,
Think
you'll find out. You'll find out because I said we're doing it backwards. We're gonna see the response, and then we'll see what he's responding to. Okay.
Oh, this is so good.
Okay. And also, if Noah was like smart, okay,
What a piece of shit.
he could have brought up the study that he was claiming that the Dove study was based on, which I found you can't find in 10 seconds. And remember, Dove said 74%. That was the statistic they pointed out. Okay. You can go to
Right.
the study, you can hit Control F, you can type in 74. That
There's
number
no
does not exist in this
74.
report.
Yeah, where's
Okay.
the 74?
There's no 74% at any point. And when you see that, you'd say, maybe this isn't the study that they were citing if there's no 74%.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Right. Now, you might say, listen, but Sitch. But Sitch.
But Sitch, he found a study.
Yes, but Sitch. Does it matter? Does it matter really if he didn't find the correct study? Yes, he was wrong maybe for making fun of Think Before You Sleep because he also found the wrong study. But does it matter? He found a study that seems to corroborate. Okay. Seems to corroborate the claim. Well-
Seems is that's a
Yes.
weasel word.
Right. Well, I'm using that weasel word intentionally. So, okay. So I'm not going to spoil it, but Think Before You Sleep kind of goes over this. But let's keep hearing Noah not address how he got the wrong study.
When you actually ask female gamers, it turns out many of them do feel underrepresented in games. Instead of engaging with this data, though, Think Before You Sleep initially spends a lot of time just decrying the labor of having to do Dove's homework for them, when he very well knows that this is a terrible argument against statistics. He's not addressing the numbers, he's just saying, this wasn't in the footnotes, and therefore I shouldn't have to take this seriously. The fact
Okay. So he's claiming that Think Before You Sleep doesn't address the statistics. Right.
I
And
have a feeling he does.
And remember, this is after he's just watched, or not just, but he's watched Think Before He Sleeps' video. And he's
Yeah,
claiming
video
to his
response to
audience.
him.
Yeah. And he's claiming to his audience that he doesn't address the numbers or the statistics.
Look, can I make a guess here? I don't want to
Yes.
spoil it.
Okay, make a guess.
Well, I'm just guessing that Think Before You Sleep found out that he got the wrong study and totally owned him on that.
You could be correct.
I mean, look, he's probably going to be, there's going to be a lot of dunking here.
Right.
Like,
you could be
you
correct.
stupid idiot, you got the wrong study. You
He
made
could
an
be-
entire video castigating me for not doing 10 seconds of work, and then you got the wrong study.
You might be correct. You could be onto something.
Look, that face right there is the face of a guy who got the wrong study. Look,
That's the
he's
face of saying not owned as you shrink into a corn. Yeah.
right, exactly. Oh, how embarrassing. How embarrassing.
I know.
Look, it's it's all Dove's fault now, right? They
Yes.
should have cited the study.
Suddenly he starts agreeing. They should have cited the study for me.
That this study wasn't cited below the ad does not invalidate these statistics. To argue against it, you need contradictory data, and Think Before You Sleep does not provide any of that in this video. However, he does eventually address the survey in his video, but when he does, he dismisses it in 3 fascinating ways. First up, he argues that the study is biased because of how they represent the differences in time spent gaming between men and women.
Let's take a look at this study that Noah found for us. Diversity in gaming, thought leadership. Let's look at the results. It starts by saying that women play games nearly as often as men, just 2 hours less than their male counterparts. Well, I don't like the framing of that at all. That's not nearly, that's a full 20% less. Nearly would be the difference of a few percent, not 1/5 of the total amount. So we're off to a great start with this study trying to make it seem like women play games significantly more than they do. This study isn't heavily biased at all.
So 10 hours of boy gaming versus 8 hours of girl gaming. He doesn't think that those are nearly the same because 8 is 20% less than 10, and that's too much percents for him. So this study is biased and can't be trusted.
So, since Noah is obviously, he's a Breadtuber, so he's obviously an idiot. He doesn't understand that when you're talking about studies, okay, or even surveys, if there's a 20% difference between something, that is a significant difference.
Yeah.
That is generally considered, especially in a psychological or sociological study, a 20% difference in something is significant by definition, almost always.
Sure.
So,
Plus, I don't know how they average it out because I mean, it could be most women don't play video games at all, and a couple girls play like 24 hours.
Oh, yes. It's almost like you would need to know more information, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yes, because that's a fantastic point. They just said average. Right. So there could be a couple girls that just play like a crap ton of video games.
Right. Yeah. They're tomboys. They have guy friends and they play video games.
Right. Versus all boys playing a more moderate hours of video games. Right.
Sure. 10 hours a day.
Right. It would sure be great if in that study it had, I don't know, some kind of methods listed or procedures listed that one could kind of derive these answers from, right?
I'm sure they probably do. I mean, most of the time these studies do.
Oh, yeah. Normally in a study, they put all that information there so you could check that out. Yeah.
But Noah would have to read the study, and that would take longer than 10 seconds.
Yes, that's true. And I'm sure Noah would address that complaint if that complaint is levied against that study, right?
Sure.
Because he's an honest actor.
No, of course you wouldn't. What am I saying? Of course you're not. What? Look. Did knowing better make that obvious?
Why are you calling him Think Before You Sleep?
I keep calling him
You're calling him Knowing Better. A completely different YouTuber.
He looks like Knowing Better.
Does he? I don't even know what Think Before You Sleep looks like.
I know. I think he's anonymous. So
okay. He doesn't even sound like Knowing Better.
Yeah, you're right.
As a glass half full kind of guy, I would like to point out that 8 being 20% less than 10 also means that 8 is 80% of 10, which is, it's a lot out of 10. To act as if 8 and 10 aren't close numbers is, I've never seen such pure, unfiltered, raw Chernobyl levels of cope, especially when...
So we have a guy who brought up the wrong study and is not admitting it, and he's claiming someone else is coping about it because they actually decided to address some elements of the study. Okay, just keep that in mind.
Those numbers are describing hours spent playing video games in a week. What that means is that the women in the study play games on average an hour and 10 minutes per day, whereas the men play on average an hour and 25 minutes per day.
Because that's how video games work, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the real difference.
That's just 15 extra minutes per day. Are girl gamer hours affected by inflation or something? Is the exchange rate between those shit right now? I don't get it at all. The next way that he dismisses the study is where he just straight up lies about what it says on the screen.
Uh-oh. Noah, who has not admitted that he got the wrong study.
Right, is calling him a liar.
Is calling Think Before You Sleep a liar. Okay, interesting.
But let's take a look at the number that Noah pointed out. It says that 69% of women say that there aren't enough female characters in games. Dove's ad was about body positivity, so by their statements, a reasonable person would infer that Dove was implying...
A reasonable person, there's your issue.
A reasonable person would infer that Dove was implying that 2 out of 3 women believe that there's not enough body positivity representation in video games, not that there aren't enough female characters. Those two things aren't the same. More women does not equal more body positivity. If these are actually the stats that Dove used, then they are lying to you or wildly misrepresenting that study.
See how he bakes in this assumption there that this number must be about body positivity, because that's what the ad is about, even though that's not what the statistic says, right? If you look on the screen, there it is. The statistic saying lack of representation, not body positivity. I genuinely can't tell if he's being dishonest here or if he just refuses to accept this because he doesn't believe it. But again, statistics are not invalidated by one's refusal to believe them.
Okay.
Yeah, what's going on here,
Okay.
obviously?
This is insane. So, as you correctly predicted in Think Before You Sleep's response video, he realizes pretty quickly that the study that Noah brought up is not the actual study.
Yeah, it can't
Okay.
be. Like, all the numbers are incorrect.
The numbers are different.
And also the body positivity versus representation. Like, more hot girls in video games is not going to be the same as representing
exactly
body positivity.
Right. And so part of that is, and he says, like, well, if we were to assume that they were the same, right? Or if I didn't know that they were the same, you know, you would say, well, wait a minute, these seem to be asking different questions and they have different numbers. And that's what he
entirely different
right.
question.
Right. And so it would be, and he's saying if Dove had used this, then it would have been dishonest.
I
right?
know.
But Noah leaves all that out and he's like, oh, he's just lying here because, you know, look at what he's doing. Look how he's weaseling. It's like, what are you talking about? This is so, like, the projection of dishonesty from Noah here is off the charts.
It is.
Yes.
Look at this. How's he so dishonest here?
Yes.
Why not just slink away? Why not make a response? Why not move on? Be like, oh, I floofed the goof on this one.
He actually does this again in a different spot in the video. This one's kind of a digression.
Okay, so, let's go to Think Before You Sleep's video, okay, and see the response that Noah here was responding to.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
Right.
I mean, this Think Before You Sleep guy is pretty.
Hey, everybody.
Pretty bright. So, I mean, this is an interesting fight.
And his video is called "Why Woke Content is Trash."
Think Before You Sleep is probably like some PhD math student, and he's anonymous because he doesn't want to ruin his career.
Well, I don't know. Well, listen, compared to Noah, everyone's a PhD math student. Okay.
Well, no, you know, you've got these YouTubers that are like super geniuses that are just anonymous because they don't want it to interfere with their academic career.
Right.
Like you see that pretty regularly.
Sure.
I don't know his situation personally, but
of course. Okay, let's continue.
Not that hard. That being said, let's take a look at this study that Noah found for us. Diversity in Gaming Thought Leadership. Let's look at the results. It starts by saying that women play games nearly as often as men, just 2 hours less than their male counterparts. Well, I don't like the framing of that.
I'll be right back. Keep it going.
At all. That's not nearly, that's a full 20% less. Nearly would be the difference of a few percent, not 1/5 of the total amount. So we're off to a great start with this study trying to make it seem like women play games significantly more than they do. This study isn't heavily biased at all. Now let's take a look at the stats that Dove allegedly was referring to. I say allegedly because Dove didn't cite their sources or make any reference to it, so Noah really has no idea if he found the correct study. Second, there are two stats here, 74% and 2 out of 3 women. Nowhere does it say 74% for any data point, so this very well could be the wrong study. Do you see the problem with Dove not citing its sources? Dove might as well have just made the numbers up. But let's take a look at the number that Noah pointed out.
Oh. Interesting how Noah left all this out in his response.
I know. What's going on?
Fascinating.
Why didn't he respond to this with a full apology about how he got the wrong study?
Yes.
How that 10 seconds of Googling should have been a little longer.
And then, as he points out, the only reason he's fixating on this one stat is because this is the stat Noah pointed out in his first video.
Right.
And he's saying they're talking about different things. And then Noah calls him a liar for this.
Right.
Fascinating.
It says that 69% of women say that there aren't enough female characters in games. Dove's ad was about body positivity, so by their statements, a reasonable person would infer that Dove was implying that 2 out of 3 women believe that there's not enough body positivity representation in video games, not that there aren't enough female characters. Those two things aren't the same. More women does not equal more body positivity.
Personally, I think that should be 100% hot girl representation in video games, Sitch. How about you?
Based.
Somehow I knew you'd agree with that.
If these are actually the stats that Dove used, then they are lying to you or wildly misrepresenting that study. On top of that, this report makes no mention of any of their methodology, so nobody can determine the validity of the measurement techniques that they use to get that data. For example,
Uh-oh. So you have a study that literally
plot
doesn't
thickens.
tell you. Yeah, it doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Noah said, Think Before You Sleep has 3 criticisms about this. And he doesn't bring forward the most important one.
I know.
Well, no,
That you got the wrong study.
Yeah, the most important one, that you don't have the right study. And then the second most important one, the study doesn't even explain what the methodology of the study was.
Oh, wow. Okay. Crazy.
this study is missing all sorts of important demographic data. Did they survey people randomly? Or did they survey a bunch of college kids? Colleges tend to lean very left, so you aren't going to get a very accurate representation of how the general population feels if you're only surveying people on the left, which is why you get nonsense like almost 70% of women saying that there aren't enough women in video games, when pretty much half the cast of every game these days is female, and it's been that way for a long time. So anyway.
Well, and here's another thing too. It only said that they interviewed X number of gamers. It didn't say how many of those gamers they interviewed were women and how many were men. I mean, it's kind of important, right? Because
of course,
it says we interviewed 13.
Is.
It says we interviewed 1,300 gamers. It's like, okay, but like if you only interviewed 100 women and 1,200 men, and all the questions are how women feel about representation in games, that's not really a good survey, is it?
Of course not. Yeah.
But no, it's not going to bring any of this up.
After nearly this entire video and reviewing the information a bunch of times during editing, I decided that there is no way in hell that Noah got the correct study, so I did what I shouldn't have had to do and checked all of Dove's partnerships from the original article, which led me to this article here from Women in Games. Guess what? It turns out that Opinium did not do the survey.
Oh, no!
Oh, that's hilarious.
No,
oh, that's hilarious.
You goofed the floof.
This is hilarious.
You floofed the goof, Noah.
How could he do that?
You got the wrong study. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Noah. You're really floofing up that one.
Look, so embarrassing. So embarrassing. He's bragging about, look, it took me 10 seconds to look up this study. To look up the wrong study.
And then, in his response to this, to not bring up that he
ignores
brought up the right study. Yes, and then he accuses Think Before You Sleep of lying.
He ignores it. I know, the cojones on this guy.
Jeez, the projection.
Look.
The dishonesty.
I totally messed up, but here, let me call you a liar and see if that smooths things over a bit.
Right.
Wow.
Terrible.
As far as I can see, it appears that Dove themselves did the survey, and Women in Games and the Center for Appearance.
The Dove people did the survey.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's so funny. I did literally the same.
Ridiculous.
When I watched it's actually kind of annoying because when I was watching this video or watching Noah's video, I basically I watched it before I watched Think Before You Sleep's response. So I unfortunately wasted time of doing all the research that Think Before You Sleep just did. And I could have just saved myself, the hour, like trying to find this stupid study, which, spoiler warning, doesn't exist. You cannot find the study anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because as he says, it looks like Dove did the study. And Dove doesn't tell you any of the information about the study at all.
So they did it. They could have literally just surveyed the office. Who knows?
Who knows what they did?
Oh, this is ridiculous. This so smacks of just virtue signaling.
Right.
Like, we just made up some stats and look, we like body positivity too. Buy our soap.
Because if you read that sentence, it says new research from Dove. Research from Dove, the soap company. You're like, all right.
This is crazy. Yeah, the soap company doing research in video games.
Yes.
That checks out.
Research endorsed it. Pay attention to the wording, by the way. It's Women in Games, not Women in Gaming, which was the search term that Noah used and probably why he got the wrong data. But I have looked everywhere and cannot find this study. Originally, I thought the Center for Appearance Research did the study, but I used every related search term I could think of and looked at every publication they made over the past 5 years and still couldn't find it. After that, I noticed that the Center for Appearance Research merely endorsed the study.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I did the same thing. I went to Center for Appearance Research because I'm like, oh, that's like a real place. I assume they did the study. You know, I was typing in Dove, I was typing in video games, I was typing all these search terms. I'm like, nothing's coming up, nothing's coming up. I'm like, where's the study? This doesn't exist. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's just not a real study. That's why.
Endorsed by.
Yes, endorsed by, whatever that means.
At this point, I've looked everywhere I could possibly look and cannot find this research. It looks like what happened is that Dove did a survey, never published it, and got 2 very politically biased organizations to approve of it, so nobody would question the origin of the data. That seems very dishonest. Do you know it would have been honest? How about you link the study at the bottom of the Real Virtual Beauty article, like you're supposed to do if you're acting in good faith? But despite not being able to find the actual research from Dove, I do find this whole thing funny because Noah was so sure that he got the right study, and he was so arrogant about it too.
The 2/3 statistic that Dove shows here, that is from this survey. All he had to do was a single Google search with some relevant terms to find this survey. It took me 10 seconds. It's really not that much work, but he didn't do it.
Maybe you should have spent more than 10 seconds Googling. Moving on to my next point, Noah doesn't like my conspiracy.
Okay.
Lazy. Lazy. Where's the lazy?
Lazy. Hit no, the lazy. Oh my God. And it's so dishonest. So dishonest that he doesn't bring any of this up in his response video.
He doesn't come clean.
Nope.
Nah, that
doesn't come clean.
Way dishonest.
Yeah. Super. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to where we left off with the first Noah video.
What's a good way? Look, obviously you're going to look like an idiot, but what's a way to respond?
Hey everybody,
and
what's
not
up?
be complete dishonest dirtbag, and also kind of lessen the impact.
Well, what I would have expected someone to do is to say to acknowledge that they got the wrong study,
right,
and to do mea culpa for that, but then to make the argument that, well, even though it's not the exact study, you know, it still shows the information that aligns with what Dove is saying, so therefore I'm right. But then
there's no way you annihilate your credibility. Like, as soon as you know that you got the wrong study and you were so arrogantly bragging about it, look, your credibility's shot.
Well, then don't respond. And then you slink away, as you said. You slink away in shame and you don't respond.
You're right. Slinking away in shame is the correct response here.
Okay, sure.
Not to come out and call the person a big fat liar.
Yes. Yeah. We're on up to it. Listen, we've all done YouTube videos. I've made mistakes in YouTube videos. I'm sure you've made mistakes.
Not like this. This is next level mistake here. Like, I'm not out here bragging about something I know nothing about.
Right.
Like, usually if I'm making a video, I'm making it because I've encountered some research or some book that I find interesting that I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. I'm
not like Googling the internet to try to disprove somebody because I disagree with their politics.
Right. Chuckle Des for $20 says, one of my favorite characters is Barbara Gordon, who, despite being paralyzed by Joker, still helps Batman fight crime as Oracle. She doesn't accept her disability as her end, but rather an obstacle to overcome. True.
Yeah, there's plenty of characters that have disabilities.
Listen, Chuckles, unless you're also a woman who's in a wheelchair, you're not allowed to like or aspire or see any good qualities of Barbara Gordon. I don't know if you know this. Okay. You can only aspire to or be motivated by characters that match your exact biological makeup, according to the rules.
We had a girl in a wheelchair in Dick Smashers. And you could always tell the readers, because you get reading coverage when the different companies look at it. Right. You could always tell the woke people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're always super offended by the attractive woman in the wheelchair.
Oh, they didn't like that there was a woman in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They thought it was tokenization.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. But that was in the pre hyper woke era, so that would have been considered tokenization. Now it would have been applauded as representation. Probably.
Well, I honestly think this was on the edge of woke.
Mm,
This time period.
right. You can't win. Varied for $20 says, look, I don't care if my girlfriend is overweight by social standards, but I do care if she's strong or agile enough to properly be a parent to her child. Other than that, you can get used to quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is why this is kind of annoying. And, Dev is right when he always brings up the golden mean stuff, is because, like, yeah, there was a time period that I was, lived through where I would agree that the kind of social pressure on women for the right health or the right weight level was too skinny, and was skinny to the point of being unhealthy, and I thought unattractive on top of that too.
Right, yeah.
And so so that did need to be redressed, but then we've gone way too far. It's like we can't just like fix it a little bit. Like we have to go like 100 miles in the other direction. We have to go way too far in the other direction. From like too skinny of unhealthy to like now you can just be obese and it's fine.
Yeah.
There's actually, and I was going to bring it up later, but I'll bring it up now. There's an interesting study that they kind of talk about where they took, they basically had men and women look at silhouettes of men and women body shapes and types and rate them on how they thought the other sex would perceive the silhouette's attractiveness. And
that's got to be good.
And it was interesting. So the women,
the men are like all of them. Good.
No, the men were able to correctly identify what men the women would find attractive.
Right.
Based on their silhouettes. And shockingly, what, of course, one of the biggest factors for the attractiveness was height, of course, unfortunately, for all the short kings out there. It's always funny that like women complain about like how men can get buff and do all these things to change their appearance to make themselves more attractive to women, and yet height is like one of the most general things that is like attractive to women, and you can do nothing to change that.
Right. Yeah.
So I just think it's funny, but so men were able to pretty accurately, according to the study, pretty accurately hit the correct silhouettes for how women would judge attractiveness. Women, however, were incorrect in judging what men would find attractive, and generally overestimated the importance of being too skinny.
Yeah, that's what I would guess.
Right. So
yeah, the men are like, they're all good.
Well,
give me one.
Men want the, they want the curvaceous women.
Of course.
So, and it's interesting that women have, maybe this is what they can complain about. Kind of, there was that time period of like the model look where it basically looks like a walking coat hanger.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think most people find that attractive.
People are so susceptible to social pressure, though, because I mean, if you're in a group of guys and you're kind of looking at girls and comparing who finds what attractive, you're wanting to answer correctly for your friends more than you're actually wanting to say what you find attractive.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So like you could like big fat girls, but you're not going to say that because
you don't want to get ridiculed by your friends.
Right. So you're here drooling over this big fat girl, and everyone's like, "Oh," and you're like, "Oh, yeah, oh."
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a fantastic
point. Trying to fake it. Right.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So I do think it's kind of weird. We are definitely a social animal that way. So maybe this is good. Maybe this body positivity stuff is good for the guys because they can say, "Yeah, I do find that attractive." Like, hell yeah.
There you go. Sammy G for $20. Hey, Sammy. Says, listen, if you want to know what video game character nerdy girls like, go to a Comic-Con. See who is dressing as who. Final Fantasy VII, Nier, and Genshin cosplayers litters the cons. This isn't rocket science. People like pretty characters, LOL. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Twitter Sucks for $20 says the father of propaganda, Edward Bernays, started feminism when he convinced a bunch of women to stand in front of cameras and smoke cigarettes during the Macy's parade. He's the guy that started this objectification crap. Really? I'll have to check that out. I don't know about this guy. Edward Bernays. I'll check it out. It is funny if there's just some guy create all this nonsense.
People put too much emphasis on physical attractiveness, though,
Mhm.
because I mean, there is something endearing about the kind of geek love scenario. You know, the two people who are mid attractiveness, even ugly, falling in love with one another. I like to think that there's someone out there for everyone. It's
Well,
all these people that want to hit above their weight class
sure.
instead of finding someone that is right for them.
Well, so there is a common thing where men will generally try to hit above their weight class, though with women not as much in
What?
terms of physical. I'm just saying, according to studies. They've done these studies.
What? No
Okay.
way. Women are always trying to hit above their weight class. Always.
Okay. I'm just saying, according to studies. According to
Well,
those Tinder studies or whatever everyone talks about. So
the Tinder, what do the Tinder studies say?
it was
That
something like
women are
me-
more likely to settle than men? Is that what it is?
well, maybe you can argue that the studies are bad because I think it was sort of who asked who out. And so maybe that kind of means I shouldn't be interpreting it this way because obviously men are the ones that primarily ask other people out. Because they're saying like
Right.
men were way more likely to ask out like women that were like quote way above them in attractive levels. Than women
Right. Yeah.
would not, be as confident asking an attractive man out.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about saying yes to the date.
sure. Yeah, obviously, if they're
Yeah.
asked, they will say yes.
Anyone that's below them, they're going to say no to.
Of course, but
Yeah.
when you say like hit below, like hit above their weight, I'm thinking in terms of like who's asking out who, not who's saying yes or no once they've been asked.
Have you seen those studies where they put like a physical attractiveness rating on people's foreheads and they go around the room and they try to figure out where their match is?
No, I
Yeah,
haven't
it's pretty
seen that.
interesting.
That sounds
So,
interesting.
but this is like what
Fucked
happens
up.
this is like what happens in real life, right? Like you
Right.
don't know. You're a kid, you start out, you're thinking about girls are thinking about guys. You don't know where
Right.
you are in the attractiveness scale. I guess
Sure.
people today do because of technology and stuff like
Right.
that. But yeah, so you kind of figure it out by who it shows interest in you and how attractive they are. But this study is pretty interesting because it's not correlated with their actual attractiveness. They just put a number on their forehead. Like you could be
Oh,
super
it's a
hot
fake
and they
number.
you could be super hot and they put a 2 on your forehead.
Right.
And
That's
you're
hilarious.
bouncing around the room trying to figure out who the 2 is so that you
Right.
can find someone to couple up with, right?
That's so funny.
So you're supposed to do different reactions based on the number on their forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but that's kind of how life is, right? I mean, people are obviously everyone, and this is the thing, because I don't like what the red pill people say, because they talk about hypergamy all the time. Women always want a man that is like more successful than them.
Right.
But I mean, men want a woman that's hotter than them. Like, how is that any different? Like,
Right.
everybody wants to marry up. Everybody
Yes.
wants to marry up. Men are just focused on physical attractiveness.
There's different metrics of what
Yeah.
up is. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
So, a guy with a stellar job, obviously he's going to marry someone who's like several
Several weight classes above him. And
several
attractiveness.
exactly. Several weight classes above him in attractiveness. That's what I'm
Right.
trying to say.
I like that I
Yeah.
use the word weight classes for that.
Well, yeah. Well, for like Sitch and I both like thick girls, so
There you
obviously
go.
weight classes
Nice.
matter here. Like some of these skinny girls, I'm going, you're looking at them
Wow.
and you're like, wow, she's an Instagram model. Like I don't get it. Like what's
She's gonna
what's
fall
going on
through a
here?
storm drain when she walks over one.
Yeah, what's going on here? Why would you want that? Why would you want this skinny girl?
It's in terms of attractiveness, I think that attractiveness for a lot of people is just a good way to get your foot into the door at all in the first place. Because you were saying like attractiveness doesn't matter so much in relationships. I think it's really it's just to get you started in the relationship, to give to get you a chance.
Of course. Right. Yeah, we've all seen the guy who's like extremely funny but not that attractive, and like all the girls are just all over him because obviously he's entertaining and fun.
Well, it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because I knew someone who, I mean, they weren't ugly, but they also weren't attractive. But they had great pull. But it was kind of confusing because they had like a really strong personality, which I would have guessed would be the primary pull. But they're also really tall, so it's kind of hard to figure out which is what exactly. What is the factor here? It's women in their height. Women Women just can't get over the height thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. Both my parents are super short. So I thought I was going to be super short, but I ended up being significantly taller than either of my
Lucky you.
parents.
Look at that.
Yeah.
You lucked out. Yeah.
So, but my granddad was 6 foot, so that obviously helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got some of him. Jay for $20 says, getting dolled up for men is the gender studies version of white adjacency. All of this thinking is engineered to be cultural poison. True. So true. 100% true. So incredibly true. Twitter Stocks for $20 says, what about character model versus player base? Final Fantasy 14 has a 7-3 male to female player base, but the character models are 6-4 female to male. You can even change what your character looks like whenever you want if you pay $5. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys like to play as attractive women in these games.
Of course.
They're staring at the character all day. But
I just went to the arcade with my wife and we were playing a bunch of fighting games. And obviously, I'm playing the hot hat, half naked girl. Like,
of course.
What's going on here?
Adam's playing Ivy and your girlfriend's getting jealous.
No. I
Or
think
your
she was
wife,
playing
I
the
should
girl. I think she was playing the girl too.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, because I have the POV thing. When I would play WoW, I would not like to play as female characters because it just felt weird to me. But I understand people who maybe don't have it and they're like just staring at their female bodies, I'm sure. But
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.